You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama and Tennessee syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, sometimes the international. And oh yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to a Taco Tuesday, because it's always about the food, it seems like. Taco Tuesday. We got a sound effect for that.
But more importantly, y'all know what today is, right? It's
Yeah. Speedy Gonzalez telling us it's Taco Tuesday. All right, welcome to it. We're glad you're here. We got a full show, a big slate of stuff. But first of all, JP's over there sipping coffee on the board. How you doing, buddy?
I'm great. How about you?
I'm good.
I'm cooling off my coffee.
The elixir of life. Is it too hot?
I got to blow on it for a good 5 minutes before I drink it.
Oh, you gotta. If you're not getting burned, you ain't really drinking coffee. All right, you good?
Yep. How about you?
I'm good enough. How about that? We got a great show laid up for you. So coming on at 3 p.m., she's been on the show before. She's an amazing person doing amazing work that I wouldn't want to do. I don't think I could take it home with me at night or avoid taking it home with me at night. Malia Stevens. She's a counselor in Birmingham. She specializes in abused kids, and many of whom are kids who are actually addicted to porn at their very young ages. It's an incredible ministry that she has. And she's an official licensed counselor. But we'll talk to Malia Stevens because there's several bills passing through the legislative process right now that are designed to protect our kids, and I want to hear what she has to say. And y'all do too. I can guarantee you're going to enjoy it. That's number one on the Triple Dipper, which I'm going to talk about right now. The Triple Dipper, hit it.
The Triple Dipper. 3 stories you've got to know.
That's right, the Triple Dipper, 3 stories, 3 themes, if you will, that you got to know as we run today's show. First out the gate, in conjunction with that conversation with Malia Stevens, we're going to talk about protecting kids. And I'm talking about all over the place. It's not just right here in Alabama. It's like Alabama, I got legislation from Tennessee, I got something from up north in New Jersey, I got the Supreme Court's in session today on the very issue. We're going to talk about it in a broad-based way. Protecting kids, number 1 on the Triple Dipper. Number 2, look, I don't know if y'all are following or not. It's just so galling. It is so transparent. The fake outrage on Pete Hegseth. And it's, listen, they don't care a thing about what's happening. They just want to get Trump, and they can't get over the fact that they got rid of General Michael Flynn, who was a warrior, who came on board as a national security advisor. They can't forget the fact that they did it once. Maybe they can do it again. And they're desperately trying to create this aura that Hegseth is soon to be outed. No, he's not. We'll talk about the fake outrage on Hegseth as number 2 on the Triple Dipper. And then number 3, oh yeah, it's a new favorite word. Trump coined it. The word is panikins. and we got a sound effect for it. It's a screaming goat sound effect for panikins. But yeah, we're going to talk about what's going on right now with liberals. I think it's beyond just what Trump was saying early on when he coined the word about people, including Republicans, who get worried about the market. What's going to happen with the trade deals and all that? Tariffs, oh my gosh, tariffs. No, it's bigger than that. Now it's just turning into the idea that everything is scary. All things are bad. What'll we do? It's fear. It's fear-mongering. It's panikins is what it is. Oh, God. I'm going to have to take that button away. I don't know if we can do that the whole show. All right, man, we got a great show laid on for everybody. And let me jump on into the Rightside Way opening monologue. And I'll remind you guys that the opening monologue, the Rightside Way, is brought to you every single day by attorney Stan McDonald. He's a partner at the law firm of Wilmer and Lee up in Huntsville. Stan McDonald, been practicing for 30 years. And yes, indeed, he's our daily sponsor for the Rightside Way monologue. I'll tell you more about Stan here in just a minute. Okay, so I may have told this story before. It's been 4 years of doing this, so it's very likely. If so, please forgive me. But it bears telling nonetheless because it's apropos for what I'm doing now. So at the beginning of the war in Afghanistan, My team and 2 other teams were sent into the northern parts of Afghanistan. And as such, we fell into what was called JSOTF North, the Joint Special Operations Task Force North. So because we were coming in from the north, we staged out of a small, mostly special operations base in Uzbekistan called Karshi-Khanabad. We just called it K2. I'll never forget one particular day. We're in a big tent with another team being introduced to the communications guys that are going to be going down range with us. And we're discussing equipment and equipment shortfalls and shortages. And, the war was new. They're getting to us what they can get to us. You make do with what you got. At the time, Operation Anaconda was ongoing in the Tora Bora Mountains in the hunt for bin Laden. The siege of Kunduz had just occurred. The Taliban were being mopped up around the country. So we're standing there in this tent, because it's still Tent City at K2, when this young captain who's on one of the other teams speaks up. Now, this guy's a stout-looking dude. He was airborne, air assault, Ranger qualified. I learned later, though, he was not near as robust as he looked. And he was looking especially tense during this discussion about equipment we didn't have. And suddenly the moment got the best of him, and I'll never forget this. He blurted out in front of all of his men and mine. He said, no lie, he said, "They're not giving us what we need, and we're all going to die if they don't get their blank together." Well, I was the ranking man in the tent as a major, and I told him to at ease those comments. And a few minutes later, I walked over and I quietly said, "Captain, come outside with me." And we had a discussion. It was a real discussion. It was a little bit one-sided, I'll be honest. But the end result of it was me telling him that his role as an assistant team leader was to ensure that his men had everything they could possibly have for the job, and then to exhort, encourage, enlighten, empower his men to accomplish their mission with what they had. And that blurting out fear and death was absolutely the last thing that any of them needed. Absolutely the last. I also made it clear he would not repeat those words again to my team under any circumstances. Well, he got it, sort of. I'm told that it was not his last moment of fatalism, if you know what I mean. If I'm not mistaken, he was also sent back to the rear soon after they got in country. Look, here's my point. Yeah, fear can be a motivator. It can. There's nothing wrong with a healthy dose of fear, but the key word there is healthy. Healthy fear is things like not wanting to miss a deadline, or being afraid you'll miss your flight so you arrive earlier, or you want to get your bills paid so you work extra shifts, or maybe getting your date home on time because you don't want her dad mad at you. Those are all healthy fears. Generally speaking, those are so-called healthy fears because they also represent you wanting to do something right, or maybe out of respect or admiration for somebody else to whom you're accountable. At the very least, those kind of healthy fears, they represent sort of a self-discipline. But the other side of that coin is the unhealthy fear that was being vomited upon everyone in that tent by that young captain. You see, that type of fear-mongering is counterproductive. It's stifling. It destroys morale. It defeats purpose. And that type of fear-mongering is what cowards do to attempt to get people to follow them when they have no clue what to do otherwise. That type of fear-mongering is exactly what the left constantly pulls on the American people. We are always in an existential crisis with the left. The polar ice caps are melting. Trump's going to deport American citizens. Transgenders are being discriminated against. Remember when the Biden administration issued a statement telling all the unvaccinated people that they, their families, and their friends were all sure to experience what they called a winter of death? A winter of death? Who even says that kind of thing? And then went on to shame people because their so-called intransigence would just surely overwhelm all the hospitals. It was awful. It was no better than that young captain who didn't know what to do with his own fears, and so he just spit it all out on everybody else. Well, the Biden administration did the same thing during COVID. They didn't know what to do with their own fears, and they also had no clue how to lead. So they railed, and they blamed, and they accused, and they threatened, and they predicted death, because that's how cowards lead. Now, you may have gained by now that I try to be a student of leadership. One of my favorite authors on the topic is John Maxwell. He's written some amazing books on leadership. In a recent interview that I heard, John Maxwell discussed the fact that in crisis, a leader cannot provide everything, but they can assess the situation and still try to set their folks up for success. Maxwell said this, it's kind of long, but I'm going to read it to you. He said, "The thing is, true leaders don't provide all the answers in a time of crisis. They provide awareness and they help prepare, which allows people to do well in the moment. They take it day by day," he said, thinking about what they do now that can bring great value and asking themselves 3 essential questions. And here they are. The 3 questions are, what are my responsibilities? What are my priorities? And what are my possibilities? That's good stuff, y'all. What are my responsibilities? That's like, what or who do I have to take care of today? What are my priorities? That's like, what can I do right now to get the highest return? What are my possibilities? Are things like, many of us have something that we needed or wanted to do, but we didn't have the time, but now we have the time. So you lay out your plans and you do it. Look, Maxwell went on to say this. He said that fear can be a powerful motivator, but that people want to get back to feeling balanced. And I agree with that. In my opinion, there's no way for there to be balance in our lives, balance in our society, if fear is the overarching motivator. You see, fear creates imbalance. Fear creates uncertainty. Fear is what generates that deer in the headlights moment in which people freeze and don't know what to do. Well, recently the liberal left has been in high gear on fear-mongering again. They've been freaking out about Trump's efforts to deport illegal alien criminals. No less than 5 elected members of the House and Senate from the Democrat Party have now made a pilgrimage down to El Salvador to ensure that the world can see how fearfully awful the Trump plan is to deport illegals. They've chosen an MS-13 gangbanger as their poster child. It's really not working for them like they thought it would, but liberals have never been known to read the room very effectively. So they fearmonger, and they heap fear on top of fear. Governor Tim Walz, the absolute worst vice presidential candidate in decades, has been on a tear lately, but his daughter has also decided that she's going to be an internet influencer. In her words, quote, Trump would have deported Jesus and claimed that he was part of MS-13, because that just makes sense, I guess. But I don't know if young Ms. Walz is a true leader, so let me turn to the media. What about MSNBC anchor Simone Sanders? Yeah, I'll play you a clip later in the show, but MSNBC anchor Simone Sanders, never one to shy away from putting her foot squarely in her mouth. She first lauded an editorial that claimed that Trump's deportation of illegal alien criminals was arguably heralding the downfall of democracy in the United States. Because I guess illegals are voters too? I don't know. But then she went on and she said this and dug her hole even deeper. She said, spewing the most vile and fearful rhetoric one can imagine, she said, if they can do it to them, if they can snatch students off the street without any pushback or recourse, they'll do it to any of us. To be very clear, she said, it's going to be the people of color and the vulnerable communities that are next in line. What is she talking about? She basically just said that if you're a black American citizen, you run the risk of getting deported. That's the most asinine thing I've ever heard. That is nothing but fear-mongering. But the real problem was not just that liberal screecher on her liberal screecher show on the liberal screecher network. The real problem was that when she said it, there was a Democrat member of Congress, Representative Glenn Ivey, a Democrat from Maryland, sitting right there on the set with her, and he actually agreed with her. He agreed with Sanders' assessment, saying that was why the black community appeared largely supportive of bringing Abrego Garcia back to the United States from El Salvador. A member of Congress just stated that the Trump administration was destroying democracy and that black Americans were likely to be next in line for being, quote, snatched off the street without any recourse or pushback. Look, it's exactly that kind of rhetoric that Americans are sick of. We are tired of being told to be tired. It is also this kind of sick, reckless fear-mongering that led to 2 actual attempts on President Trump's life, and to a crazed Democrat shooting up a congressional baseball practice a few years ago when Steve Scalise was nearly killed. Look, leadership, real leadership, the kind that you want to follow just because you want to, because you respect it, real leadership that also indicates that it respects you, that kind of leadership does not promote fear. Real leadership, the kind that we're all looking for and wanting more of, it tells you how we're going to beat this thing, how we're going to overcome, how we will be inspired. Real leadership does inspire, it motivates, it gives hope, it shows the way forward. And we need more of that. Which, by the way, in my opinion, is part of why the Trump administration won the election hands down. So hang in there, folks. Bottom line is fear won't be here forever. But hope does last forever. And that's a wrap for the Right Side Way. Yes, Simone, what's her name? Simone Sanders. My gosh. I mean, just screeching about black people are going to get deported and then just skipping on by it like that made good sense. And then the Democrat congressman, who's supposed to be a leader, agreed with her. Folks, that's the kind of rhetoric that is harmful. That's no better than that young captain in the tent in Uzbekistan that day. That's just fear. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, just plain right. Saving the world one soundbite at a time. Text lines are indeed open, 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Just text it or call it, same number for both. And I gotta say, before we jump into the dippers and cover all the usual material that I've got planned out, we had an announcement today. President Trump will be speaking at the commencement address for the University of Alabama in May, I guess?
I think it's
next
May.
month.
The first weekend of May, I think. First Saturday of
I
May.
know
maybe.
1819 and Yellowhammer and probably AL.com all have the story, I believe.
Yeah.
So that's big doings, man.
Yeah. Would have been my commencement address at Alabama. It's just kind of funny. But
Maybe he came because he thought you were there.
Yeah.
I got to go because
break the news
JP's
to him.
there. Still, nonetheless, that's very cool. University of Alabama. I suspect there'll be a lot of folks trying to go see that speech who don't have any by graduating at all. They just want to go hear the speech.
And unfortunately, agitate. I've already seen people I follow who are liberals who go to Alabama who are not too happy about it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Like people are like saying, I'm not going, or what are they doing?
Or they're going to be, any graduates are going to use their graduation ceremony, put stuff on their caps, and I'll show Trump. Okay.
I wonder if the university can stop that kind of stuff. I mean, there's freedom of expression, and then there's just absolute belligerence and not following rules that are in place by the organization you're part of.
Well, I told you off the break. I mean, when they invite Trump to this, they're bringing a whole bunch of other crap with it. So.
Well, they know that when they did. And I don't know, by the way, I'm not sure. I saw one headline a moment ago that said, we're thankful that we were selected as one of those that Trump was. So I'm wondering if Trump sent the request saying, I'd be willing to come speak, or because you got to know they typically have these speakers lined up well in advance.
Yeah. Him and Alabama and West Point were the two he announced yesterday. So
Alabama and West Point.
Yep, he'll be doing commencement speeches at.
Wow. Okay. Well, there better not be any students at West Point with silly things on their head.
I'm not worried about that.
Well, they did a few years ago.
Really?
Oh yeah, they had a kid that he was a cadet at West Point, and he opened up his uniform to show that he had a T-shirt underneath it that said something like "Communism is great" or something like that.
At West Point.
At West Point.
Wow, that's nuts.
All right, listen, I got plenty more. We're going to talk about it. Oh, plus I got to tell you about Stan McDonald, which I didn't do a minute ago. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. Hey, all you Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all are talking about this show. Whew. Goes from like Huntsville back over to Chattanooga. from Tuscaloosa back over to Gadsden. I'm talking about all the way down to that loveliest little village on the plains we call Auburn, straight across the border to what now we once again call Fort Benning. And then big old patches of North Georgia and Mississippi thrown in just for good measure. All right, I did not mention it before the break, so I got to mention it now. So the sponsor daily of the Rightside Way monologue every day is attorney Stan McDonald. So Stan McDonald, partner at the law firm of Wilmer and Lee, sponsor daily of the Rightside Way. He's a 30-year veteran in the practice of law. And listen, I happen to know him personally, and I will just tell you that even though Stan McDonald is the kind of guy who can advocate for your legal needs, he's also, by the way, a guy who has spent years in the trenches on the conservative policies and politics that right-side ruffians care about. The man is an OG ruffian from way back. So attorney Stan McDonald, he has represented his clients in literally thousands of real estate transactions. He can represent you in any local, state, or federal court. And I always say, if Stan McDonald's on your side, you could have no greater friend. Likewise, your adversaries would have no greater foe. So I'm going to tell you how to reach him. You ready? You might want his phone number. Need a lawyer in North Alabama? Stan McDonald. Law firm is Wilmer and Lee. The number is 256-479-3020. That's Stan McDonald, 256-479-3020. Tell him you heard about it on Rightside Radio. And by the way, no representation made. The quality of legal service be performed is greater than the quality of legal service for the lawyers. You're smiling. Come on.
I want to give you a 9.5, but since it was a segment later than normal, I guess we'll go 9.3.
Oh,
I'm just kidding.
You're the producer, though. You're supposed to be calling me out when I forget stuff. Okay. Well, dang, I'll take it. All right, listen, we're going to jump on in. Let me get a few text messages real quick. Jeff wrote from Indiana regarding the monologue. Says, hey, Phil, fear is a powerful tool when you want to control the mind of the weak. Democrats are mostly controlled by their emotions, while Republicans deal with things logically for the most part. So without fear, Democrats could not keep their weak-minded base voting for them. Wow. That would be a cogent analysis on your part, Jeff wrote from Indiana. Thank you very much. JT Lacey Springs says, your monologue. Folks who comment such ridiculous ideas about deportation, can we not make that true for them? Also, the wife and I eloped this day on 48 years ago. Wow, JT, that's awesome. Give me some applause for that. Happy anniversary, 48 years. You are exactly 10 years ahead of the lovely Charlene and I. We're at 38 years. So appreciate you, JT. Happy anniversary. John from Huntsville, Phil, spectacular monologue. Also, JP. Did you hear the Atlanta Braves have now won 4 games in a row and are officially tied for last place in their division? I hope they keep the winning streak going.
I do too, but my expectations are low this season. But you know what? We'll take it.
How's that feel when you know that you've moved up to being tied for last as opposed to being last by yourself?
Hip, hip, hooray.
All right, listen, we're going to jump into this first dipper. So this one is called Protecting Kids. And I'm gonna have a great guest coming up in about 20 minutes, but let me lay the foundation for a few things. All right. So I believe that kids are our ultimate resource. They are the greatest gift that God has ever given us, and that's not just America. That's the world. But that being said, we have got. I feel like more than ever we have got to keep on guard for what is happening with our kids. It used to be that the left was, or for that matter, evil. Let's just say evil. It used to be that evil would sneak around trying to impact kids' lives. Now it's just brazen. Now it's just all out there. Now they put up billboards. Now it's like everything from gaudy makeup and parades to books in their school that are labeled as part of the curriculum to, inserting things into Disney films to, predators having online access to your kids, and legislators won't just do the simple things to keep that from happening. It's everywhere, and it's brazen. And sometimes it's done in an official capacity. Sometimes this evil that tries to perpetrate itself on our kids literally doesn't even cloak itself in the mask of obscurity. It doesn't do anything to try and, creep around as a social, cultural thing. It comes at you as an official governmental action. Well, the Supreme Court of the United States is hearing oral arguments. I actually did this morning. And I'm wondering where this is going to go, because I've got a piece here by Jonathan Turley, and I had said before, and he said also, that this case that was being argued today before the Supreme Court of the United States could prove to be one of the most important victories for parental rights and the protection of kids. Here's the deal. The case originally is called Mahmoud versus Taylor. All right. There were a number of parents in Montgomery County, Maryland, who protested when they found out that their children were being required to take part in classroom instruction that had all kinds of LGBTQ plus themes. I mean, like I said, they're not even trying to pretend. They're hanging rainbow flags in your classrooms now. The case, by the way, involves books once again, because, that's just... Anyway, they had a variety of books. Well, these parents were a mixed bag of Muslims, Catholics, Ukrainian Orthodox, and they sued, saying it was a violation of their religious principles to, have the school just say, well, too bad for your luck, we're putting the books in the classroom. The parents asked for an opt-out. The county school board in Montgomery County, Maryland, denied the parents an opportunity to have their children opt out from the instruction. Now, keep in mind, we're not talking about them opting out of the class. And also, by the way, keep in mind, we're talking about all the way down to 3 years old. These are sometimes, the age group we're talking about is between 3 and 10. So you're talking preschool up to about 3rd grade. What? Preschool to 3rd grade. Why do they need books on sexuality? Why do they need books on transgenderism? I'll tell you why. Because they're trying to normalize it in these kids' minds, regardless of whether the parents want it normalized or not. They know it's a controversial topic, and they don't give a rat's hind end. So, that being said, Mahmoud versus Taylor came to the Supreme Court of the United States. The parents lost at the lower courts. They did. The question is going to be now, what's the Supreme Court going to do? So the parents, they're rightfully alleging religious hostility. The Board of Education, well, their arguments are a little more benign, a little more administrative. They claim that, well, it's necessary for them to have a uniform curriculum. Why are there books on transgenderism in the curriculum? By the way, we're not talking about they're just in the school library. No. We're not talking about they were gifted to the school and accidentally placed on a shelf and kids could stumble across them. No. The school board wants them taught in class. That's different. So we're not talking about parents wanting to opt their kids out of the class. We're just talking about parents who don't want their kids reading that book right there. They also insist, the school board does, that, allowing some parents to opt out would be an overwhelming burden. Not if you don't teach the freaking book. Just stop teaching it. But all the parents are saying is, just give us an opt-out. Have an alternative. Our kids will read a different book. Teachers and boards, it says, by Jonathan Turley, it says, are killing the institution of public education by treating children and parents more like captives than consumers. They're force-feeding social and political priorities, including passes for engaging in approved protest. So the end result is this. The arguments came before the Supreme Court today. There were some pretty heated questions, very pointed, very direct. It'll probably be June before we know, at the earliest, maybe later, what they're going to do. In the meantime, Montgomery County, Maryland is all in, man. They want these books in the curriculum. Bam, we're sorry. And parents are like, no, how about just no? All right, so coming up top of the hour, we're going to talk about some things that are being done. Now, that's a case where parents got active and said no. And they were willing to go all the way to the Supreme Court of the United States to argue their points. But there are some things that can be done purely by legislation. And they're really not rocket science. So I've got a case. Let's see. Where's the one from Tennessee? Hang on a second. Tennessee. So Tennessee passed a bill last year called the Protect Tennessee Minors Act. The Protect Tennessee Minors Act got this off of local news, WATE out of Tennessee. Came out in January. Cybersecurity experts believe that a law meant to protect kids from adult websites is now causing a rise in VPN searches. You're shaking your head. What do you?
This is funny to me. It's ridiculous.
They're desperate to find the end around.
Yeah.
So I'm not a techie, all right, but a VPN, help me understand this, is your way of finding a backdoor through to something.
Yeah, it masks your IP with a different one. So you can say, like, I've got a VPN. You could put it at California, LA. You could put it in Spain, Germany, anywhere. So you can put the VPN as anywhere outside of Tennessee, and it would say, it'll give you a backdoor through. Yeah.
So basically, you could sign up for something that your state law says you can't sign up for without them realizing you were in that state.
Yeah, I mean, I got I get notifications and ads on my Instagram for where my VPN's set up, and like they don't know I don't live there. So yeah, you can mask completely where you're from with that. Yeah.
Wow. I guess that's another story about why you have a VPN. But okay.
I'm paranoidly private, so that's
I understand.
Yeah.
It's okay. I'm the guy who keeps the camera covered on my
yes.
my devices. Yes. All right, but so in January, a circuit court judge lifted a stay that had been originally in place that allowed the Protect Tennessee Minors Act to go into effect. All it does is it requires pornographic websites to make users verify their age. In other words, all you're doing is you have to click on there saying, I'm over the age of 18. Okay, that's scary. But apparently now they're seeing a massive uptick in people trying to get VPNs to do an end around on that. Tells you how prolific the situation was. It absolutely tells you there was a problem. If you're seeing Tennessee suddenly become the #1 state in the nation, that's what it says. Google Trends now show that since that law took effect, Tennessee became the #1 state for VPN searches. What does that tell you? There was a problem. All right, Alabama Senate's working on 2 bills right now. Alabama Senate's working on 2 bills. One is Senate Bill 186. This story is datelined yesterday off the Alabama Reflector. I forgot about the Reflector. I don't go there very often. A guy named Brian Lyman runs it. Yeah.
I actually don't know who that is.
Alabama Reflector is another online news website. It's run by a liberal guy named Brian Lyman. He used to work for the Montgomery Advertiser. I saw him all the time in Montgomery. He's a good enough dude, but now that he's away from the Advertiser and no longer bound by certain protocols, there's no fooling about where he stands on the issues. Anyway, he runs his website called Alabama Reflector. So we got 2 bills. I'm sorry, let me jump back. Did I digress? 2 bills. Senate Bill 186 just passed the Alabama State Senate. It's one we talked about before. It allows for a filter that already exists on your phone to just simply be turned on by the point of sale that prevents kids from being able to see obscene material. It already exists. Most people, I didn't know it was there until I was told. You can just go in there and enable it, and then it's a parent that has to have the password to undo it. And it keeps kids from stumbling into porn. The other thing is Senate Bill 187, and this is interesting. This is going to require the app stores to make sure they do age verification before they will sell an app or sign somebody up for something, because technically what you're doing is engaging in a contract, and kids in Alabama and most states are not eligible due to their age to enter into contracts. And they're entering into things that wind up costing money, and the parents have to pay for it, and it's things that shouldn't be happening. So these 2 bills are going right now, and we're going to talk to somebody here at the top of the hour about one of them. All right, let's go ahead and take a break right now. We'll come right back. Y'all, I'm telling you, I got news here, some of which is going to curl your hair. We got to protect kids. Got to. And it's an affirmative, intentional thing. It requires some effort. The liberals aren't letting up. Why should we? Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Just making common sense like a superpower. All right, so I was just before the break, I was telling you there's two bills right now floating their way through the Alabama legislature. Two bills just recently passed, like in the last couple of days, the Alabama Senate. One is Senate Bill 186. It's the bill that requires turning on the filters that already exist on smartphones and tablets. It's not hard. It's like, it doesn't hurt you. It doesn't diminish things. It doesn't cost you anything. It's already there. It just says at point of sale, you got to turn it on, and the parents have to have the password if you're under 18 to turn it back off. It keeps kids from stumbling into porn. That's a big deal. All right, the other bill is Senate Bill 187. Senate Bill 187, which passed overwhelmingly, would require app stores. You know, you go online to the Play Store or wherever, or the Apple App Store, and then and kids sign up for stuff. And kids sign up for stuff not knowing that they're entering into a contract agreement sometimes, or that it's going to cost them things, or that they just engage a subscription. You know, sometimes their parent's credit card is tied to their smartphone, and next thing you know, the parent's credit card is being hit with charges. Well, minors can't. And by the way, some of these things are also, you're downloading stuff that they shouldn't be on. And there should be a standard. Well, why anybody would be scared of this, I don't know. Just all it's doing is saying we want the app stores to have to say, are you over the age of 18 in Alabama? That's all we want it to say. And I'll say this, Senator Clyde Chambliss, I know Clyde, he's a good guy from Prattville, says this is important because children, minors, are not of an age and maturity and intellect to be able to enter into contracts or to read and understand these contracts. They're even hard enough for adults. And that's a great point. Why would we not protect kids?
We actually got a comment on our YouTube live stream about this. The quote, Drumming Marine is his name on YouTube.
Oh yeah,
says I entered into a quote contract once with Columbia House. They wanted their penny, by golly.
Oh yeah, yeah.
He also said,
okay, I've seen that one.
So contracts for minors isn't a new thing, even though 99% have said minors have no idea what a contract even is. Hardly any consequences to bad agreements, i.e. student loans.
You know what's funny? Now that you say that, there's a breaking news right now. I'm looking at it on my screen sitting here that says, breaking news, President Trump will resume collection of outstanding and defaulted student loan payments beginning May 5th. It's like, it's going to be a hard wake up for some people. So there's that. But the other piece, Columbia House, do you even know what that is?
Nope.
Okay. So back in the days when we got our music through like records and CDs and cassette tapes, and even 8-tracks. I am there. I'm 8-track man. There's a company called Columbia House that would send you stuff in the mail, and they'd say, for 1 penny, pick your top 10 albums. But to do so, you had to sign up a subscription, and then every month you had to pick what they would send you, or they would send you something automatically and bill you. And so basically, if you're not careful, you're going to wind up getting, some cheesy band you never would have wanted, unless you told them for a fact all you wanted was like classic rock or whatever else. And so, but Columbia House, so I did it. I can't tell you. You get the 10 CDs and then hope they never follow up. Well, no, by God, they want their penny. They're going to get that penny. And then they're going to get that $19.99 per every month too, just to keep. And then your parents wind up having to get you out of it.
If you don't choose what you want them to send, do they send you something by like the original artist?
Yes, that's right. There's that. Yeah, I'm still emotionally scarred from that one. All right, listen. When we get back, we're going to be talking to Malia Stevens. She's amazing. She does amazing work. She does work that. I used to work in an adolescent treatment center. I know how hard it is to work with kids who've been abused and who have been put through things that no kid should have to see. But she does it even on levels that I never did. She's a licensed counselor, and she's got a real heart for kids, and she's got a real heart for protecting kids, and she cares deeply about these bills I just told you about in the Alabama legislature. We'll talk to Malia Stevens right after this.
You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama and Tennessee syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, sometimes the international. And oh yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome back to hour number 2 on what is often referred to as a Taco Tuesday, because it's always about the food, it seems like. But I tell you what else is about. This dipper that I'm doing right now, I'm calling it Protecting Kids. And there is... This is okay. So let me back up. Use your words, Phil. Kids are a gift from God. They just are. And anybody who tells you different just doesn't know. The end result is that kids are our greatest resource. They are a joy and a blessing. You know, I've heard it said that anyone can be a father, but it takes someone special to be a dad. And that's because raising kids is an honor and a blessing. And so is working with kids. And protecting kids is actually a duty and a responsibility. Well, sometimes it's the things that happen in culture, but sometimes it's official legislative action, things that happen in government. And I told you about a few things before we got going, but let me just go ahead and bring somebody in now who has really been in the mix, in the fray, and been on the show several times over the last couple of years. Malia Stevens. So Malia Stevens, you may recall, she's a licensed counselor with Wellspring Christian Clinic in Birmingham. She's got her undergrad from Samford University. She got her master's in marriage and family therapy from Abilene Christian University in Texas. And she is also, by the way, a board member on the National Center for Sexual Exploitation in Washington, D.C. She does work that I don't know that I could possibly do. And she cares deeply about her mission in life. Let me bring her on. Malia Stevens, how are you doing?
Hey, Phil, I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for making some time. Listen, my friend, I think it's important for people to understand maybe your background and your mission in life. So before we even get into the legislation, would you just kind of remind folks who you are and what you do?
Certainly. I'd be happy to. Yeah, so as you mentioned, I'm a marriage and family therapist, a wife and a mom. And since I was a little girl, I knew I wanted to work with families in some capacity. I used to listen to Dr. Dobson on the radio, actually, and I was like, I want to do that one day. And so I love working with families. I really do love seeing families and relationships strengthened. But over the course of the 25 years I've been in private practice, from the very beginning, I was seeing cases where pornography was, just destroying lives, harming lives, hurting marriages, and seeing it affect couples and individuals. But over the years, I was seeing younger and younger people who were really being devastated by exposure to hardcore addictive content. And it kind of came to a head between 2009 and 2011. I was seeing families who brought in young children. I don't really specialize in young children, but I work mostly with adults and teenagers. But they just brought in some children because they knew I worked with these types of cases who were addicted to pornography, like little girls, little boys, ages 6 to 11, who after 1 or 2 exposures to hardcore pornography had gotten hooked and had their frontal lobe hijacked by this material, and they were falling into these patterns of child-on-child harmful sexual behavior, which is really common when a child is exposed to pornography because it kind of traumatizes them. That's how they cope with it. So I was seeing these cases, and it was just heartbreaking. These were good kids from good homes, but they were in this pattern, and they were going to great lengths to get their hands on pornography because they couldn't get it at home at this point. And so I was seeing how much of a hold it had. And at the same time, I was working with 3 survivors of sex trafficking, 2 of whom had been forced to create pornography against their will when they were captive. One was a male, one was a female. And so my mind was just kind of exploding with understanding the overlapping influence of pornography and all the different types of sexual exploitation, how they're interconnected. So I was crying all the time, basically, and the Lord broke my heart over it. And I was like, okay, God, I've got this burden. What do you want me to do with it? And he was like, well, you're going to raise awareness. You're going to do something with it. So long story short, that's how I began to get connected with the National Center on Sexual Exploitation back in 2012. And since then, we've done many campaigns and worked on legislation. In 2020, we passed a resolution to declare pornography a public health crisis in Alabama.
Yeah.
And we've been working diligently on some other measures to protect kids online. But we fight some heavy opposition. But it's been good. And I think our state's come a long way in terms of their awareness and desire to see things shift for children in particular.
Well, I'll never forget, and I think I mentioned this to you once before you were on the show. My daughter, who's an adult now, was doing a school project, and I want to say she was like maybe 10 years old, and she had to do a story on the White House. And you may know where I'm going now. She just innocently went online with no intent to look up anything illicit and stumbled into it without knowing, because some of these sites, they know exactly what they're doing. They put themselves out there in such a way that they can be stumbled upon easily. And my daughter was so upset because she literally just found herself on a website that just was horrible for her. And it was a porn site that called itself White House dot something. And all said and done, sometimes there's the actual exploitation. Other times there's the preventable accidental things that can lead to bigger problems if we don't just take the easy steps to prevent them. And that's what this legislation we're looking at right now does in the State House. It's so easy, and it's also been
really
resisted
is.
the last few years.
Right. Yeah, it really is. And you're right to share that story about your daughter, because the pornography industry really comes after children. They target children. You may have seen the Senate hearings of, I guess it was last year, where like Ted Cruz and Marsha Blackburn and several others had social media execs on the stand and calling them out for how they've knowingly allowed children to be exploited on their platforms, and basically said you've got a profit target on each child, like you see them as a profit target. And that is truly the case. Unfortunately, the more you get behind the scenes, the more you see that this is really not just accidental. It's pretty sinister on the part of big tech and the pornography industry in many cases. They want to data mine our children. They want to sell the data. The pornography industry wants to hook our kids as early as possible. Because they make more money off of them.
Yeah.
And it's pretty evil. And at every hearing, we've got lobbyists on the other side representing Apple, Google, the pornography industry, and oftentimes AT&T, sometimes Verizon, things like that. And then on our side, you've got parents and medical professionals and tech and legal experts demonstrating why this is so simple and why it's so needed. But it's pretty cut and dry between the two different sides of the issue as it relates to the innocence and the protection and the well-being of our children.
Well, and I look at it too, and I realize you know the deal. Like you can, if you're online shopping, if you go to a website, next thing you know, all of your ads and everything else, they begin to geo-target you. So it's not just the site itself. Sometimes it's all the stringers that grab hold of the site, and like you said, they data mine, and next thing you know, they're flooding your home internet with things that you almost can't avoid it at some point if you're not careful. So let me ask you this: Senate Bill 186 is the one you and I have talked about before. It should have already passed, but right now it has passed the Senate, and we're moving towards the House. Talk about that one first. That's the one that has the porn filter that all it has to do is be engaged.
Exactly. So it's called the Safer Devices for Kids Act, and you're right, it's Senate Bill 186, and it is being carried by Senator Clyde Chambliss and Representative Chris Sells in the House. And the last 2 years, that bill, identical pretty much, the last 2 years passed unanimously through the House, but it was not allowed for a final vote in the Senate. So opposition forces were able to kind of snuff it out in the Senate. This year, through a really dramatic effort from Senate leadership, it was able to make it through the Senate, and now we're going to be working our way back through the House. So I'm hopeful that since it's already passed the House the last 2 years, it will make it across the finish line this year. But you're right, it really should have already passed, and had it already passed and gone into effect, young children would really be protected by this bill, because all that it does is it requires that device manufacturers, whenever a device like a tablet or a smartphone is activated for a minor in the state of Alabama, the existing filtering technology will just simply be defaulted on. Instead of it being off as it is now. And so an adult can turn it off later if they want to with a passcode, but a child will be handed a safer device. And older kids can maybe figure some things out, but younger children in particular are going to be, all kids will be better protected, but it's a layer of protection for young children so they don't stumble on it, because 47% of the time kids are going to accidentally stumble upon pornography on smartphones and tablets when they're young.
What's crazy is that filter already exists, like you said. It comes from the manufacturer. When you get the phone at the point of sale, it's already on the phone, which is a clear indication that they know that people want this, but they just don't tell you it's there. It's kind of like selling shoes that have shoelaces, but nobody ties the shoes. I mean, it's designed to do something, and it's there for a reason.
It's like selling somebody a car, but putting the seat belts, they're not connected and they're in the back of the trunk or something.
Yes.
And you've got to go read the manual and figure out how to put your seat belts on.
That's better than my shoes and shoelaces. Yeah.
Well, no, yours was good too.
Well, all right. Listen, this bill is moving, and I'm prayerful and hopeful that it's going to finally pass. And shame on them if it doesn't. But the other bill, which is new, Senate Bill 187, at least new to me, Senate Bill 187. Just passed the Senate also, and this requires the App Store to do age verification. Tell me about that one real quick.
This one is awesome. It's much more it's more comprehensive. They're both important. We need both of them, but this one is really great because, and both of these bills have already passed Utah, and the App bill is currently progressing really well in Texas, just by the way. But this one, it requires that the device manufacturers and the app developers work together to better protect children. And essentially, it's going to empower parents as well, because right now children can go onto they can purchase an app without necessarily having parental approval. A child can't go into a store and buy cigarettes or alcohol, and they can't go into a bank and sign a contract, for a loan. But they're essentially going into contract with these multi-billion-dollar companies whenever they sign up for an app, and children can't consent to that. So this bill is really focused on consent law.
Yeah.
And it's requiring that the device manufacturers notify the app developers, hey, this is a minor that's about to try to sign up for your app. And then the parents have to be notified at every single time. The parents have to be notified, and they can either accept or deny request. And then also the other thing that is amazing is that it's going to require these app developers to actually have accurate age ratings, because right now they can put any age rating they want to on them. It's just completely subjective, and you've got so many apps that are marketed as safe for children, but they're actually breeding grounds. They're places where predators are really coming after our children at younger and younger ages. So it's going to tighten up all that and just make it a safer digital environment for our kids.
Well, I am hopeful. So let me ask you this. We got about maybe a minute and a half here. What's your expectation? Because we're down to the wire. We got, maybe 1 week worth of legislative action potential here left. And and what are you hearing? Because they're through the Senate, and I think you told me offline that the Senate bills are what's going to travel now. We're gonna move those. So what's your anticipation regarding when they'll come to the floor, and what kind of promises, or for that matter, fears, are you hearing from leadership?
I'm hearing that we're still going to have to battle Apple and Google, and perhaps some of the pornography industry and AT&T as well. But Apple and Google in particular, for both bills, but especially the app bill. And they don't want to be regulated. They don't want to lose access to our kids. They don't want to have any kind of. They're one of the only entities that's not regulated in any way, shape, or form, and they don't want to have that happen. So they're fighting us really hard, and we need our legislators to understand that parents, I'll say this too, we've done polling, 83% of Alabama residents, Republican and Democrat, want to see these bills pass. But we need our legislators to understand that they're being, really watched. Are they going to align with big tech and the pornography industry? Are they going to align with our children and our families? So we're going to have a battle. We know that there's still going to be an effort to stall it and potentially kill it. So if your listeners would not mind taking the time to call Speaker Ledbetter's office, other leadership, and just let them know that you care about these bills, that you really want to see them cross the finish line this year.
Yeah, that's the Senate Bill 186 and the Senate Bill 187. And what are the nicknames for the bills? You called them something a moment ago.
The App Store Accountability Act is Senate Bill 187.
Yeah.
And the Safer Devices for Kids Act is Senate Bill 186.
Okay. All right. Listen, Malia Stevens, would you please just kind of keep us posted? And if you see things moving or not moving, we'll jump you back on the air at a moment's notice and keep the audience updated on this, okay?
That would be awesome. Thank you so much, Phil.
All right. Malia Stevens, licensed professional counselor at Wellspring Christian Clinic. We appreciate your work, and we'll have you back on. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Rand Long coming back for a short segment. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right, just pulling pins on truth grenades in here. So, all right, I ran long because I wanted to get as much time as I could for Malia Stevens to outline those bills and the need. And I hope y'all got the grasp of what's happening right now. We have two major pieces of legislation that are like low-hanging fruit easy. They are just like too easy for anyone to ever avoid. And what's happening right now is, I guarantee you, what I'm hearing, by the way, is that the bill that has the App Store discussion wrapped in it, has the App Store age verification wrapped in it, that leadership is not sure, that would be Speaker of the House, Nathaniel Ledbetter, is not sure he wants to pass that one. It may be too much. Why? I mean, well, because Apple might say something about it, because Google might say something about it. Listen, the bottom line is this: it's for our kids. I will point out too, on a sidebar note here, that case with with the Supreme Court today, Justice Kavanaugh asked the question pointedly. He said they're not asking you to change what's taught in the classroom. They're just wanting to walk out, their children to walk out so they're not exposed to things contrary to their beliefs. It's not hard. It's really not. Taking care of kids, it's not rocket science. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. You are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all, I'm talking about this show. Woo. It goes from like Huntsville back on over to Chattanooga. I'm talking about from Tuscaloosa back on over to Gadsden. I'm talking about from all the way down to that beautiful, that loveliest little village on the plains we call Auburn, straight across the border. And now what we also once again call Fort Benning, Georgia. And yeah, big old patches of North Georgia and Mississippi thrown in just for good measure. Big old footprint, big old right side footprint. All right, got a few text messages. Let me get a little bit of those. Jeremy from Madison said earlier on my legal disclaimer for Stan McDonald, he said a perfect 10. He said a perfect 10.
It was good. It was a good one. I feel like, though, part of me thinks if I give you a 10, then the bit's over.
I feel like you're poo-pooing my perfect 10. That's why.
You know, if you want a participatory 10 from the...
a participatory 10. Are you saying I just got a participation trophy? Is that what you're saying?
I'm not. I didn't say that, no. Sounds like you're taking my words out of context.
Yeah, okay. Michael from Madison just said, I bet that a Supreme Court case isn't going our way. We won't hear anything about it till June, but if it looks like it's leaning our way, someone's going to leak it to the press and make it big to rile up attention. Well, there's that, although there's really truly only been one leak, and that was Roe v. Wade, which was a generational case. So we'll see. By the way, why don't we know who leaked that? That's really unconscionable. I mean...
That's true. I guess we still don't know.
We don't know.
No.
They won't tell us. I mean, the potential is there that they don't know either, but I'm betting they do.
Surely, right?
Yeah.
They have to know.
Tom with all the kids up yonder in Huntsville says, my first Columbia subscription was cassette tapes. Yeah, buddy. And listen, I don't know how Columbia House did what they did, but they sold a bunch of albums and they gave away a bunch for free. And then they came after you to get it back. And then they'd find out, oh, you're under the age of 18. Dave, come here.
Rats.
Like, well, you entered into a contract with a minor who had no authority to enter into a contract under the lies of the law. So sorry for your luck. But no, it really was pretty awful, to be honest with you. All right, listen, we're going to switch gears. I'm going to Dipper number 2. So the fake outrage on Pete Hegseth. My gosh. Have you ever seen a bigger feeding frenzy? They are so in need of someone to basically put on the chopping block, and I mean literally the knives are out right now for Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, and I believe that what we're looking at is what I would call fake outrage, absolutely fake outrage. This is in my opinion, it's not about Pete Hegseth has got Signal Gate. He said things he shouldn't have said on Signal. Oh, come on. Where were you when, you got Swalwell sleeping with Fang Fang, the Chinese spy, right? Where were you when Adam Schiff is leaking to the media that he's seen the evidence and there was nothing there? Where were you when 21 different members of the intelligence community were saying, there's nothing to see here with regards to the Hunter Biden laptop because it's all really just classic Russian disinformation. I mean, the absolute, just hypocrisy of the left when it comes to things like, I don't know, intelligence and leaks is just completely unhinged right now. But that's not really the issue, is it? It's not about that. It's not about at all whether or not something was said on Signal that should or should not have been said, which, by the way, is arguable about whether it could or should not have been said. What we're really talking about here is A, the left hates Trump, and B, the left hates warriors. That's my opinion. The left hates Trump. I don't think anybody can argue that. And the left hates warriors. That's my opinion. And look, I'll be honest with you. I'm a third-generation Army officer. I'm a veteran of 2 wars. And I'm ready to see the U.S. military completely restored to its full capacity, with its sole mission being building up warriors who will defeat and deter the enemies of our nation. Just saying. And so, like I said, this is not about Signalgate. This is about the left losing their social experimentation petri dish known as the U.S. military, and also hating Trump at the same time. And if you watch Pete Hegseth right now, by the way, watch how the troops respond to him. You watch. Tell me when the troops respond to him that that's not legit. When he gets out there and he shakes hands with them and he looks them in the eye and he speaks their language and he jumps down and does push-ups with them, when he goes running with them, when he's there to give them an award, when he's approachable, when he's wearing a baseball hat, I mean, listen, he's their guy. And I think that the left would do well to recognize that the rank and file likes this guy. They're inspired by this guy. Morale, generally speaking, among the ranks in all branches of the service is higher than it's been in years. Recruiting is going through the roof. Accountability is finally back in vogue. People are being held accountable, and I'll tell you more about that in a minute. Military leaders at all levels who cannot support the idea of there being a warrior ethos or having, the whole fool around and find out thing is coming back to bite them in a big way, as they find out that they don't have the DEI backing of the old, liberal squishy Pentagon of the Biden administration anymore. Hegseth is, first of all, Hegseth's going to survive this. The Trump administration has been very adamant that they don't see the issue and that this is a whole lot to do about nothing. This is the left needing a target. The left has two targets right now. One is Abrego Garcia, who's sitting in a prison down in El Salvador, and they're desperate to get him back because they need a poster boy. And if they get him back up here, you mark my words, it'll be nothing but one press conference after another. He'll be on every liberal talk show. He'll be talking about how life was so hard he didn't understand. He was a good citizen. He was just trying to be a good man, a good father. He was a resident. But here's the other piece they're after right now is Pete Hegseth. They're after him because they thought they smelled some blood in the water, and now they don't know what else to do because they don't have any other blood. And they remember those halcyon days when they got rid of Lieutenant General Michael Flynn. Remember that? In the first Trump administration, they began to target, and they didn't want somebody who was going to call out the military and put the defense industrial complex on its heels. They didn't want that. And so the FBI literally came over and made a false representation to him about why they were talking, and then indicted him and ruined his life. Mike Flynn ruined his life for a number of years. Just basically trashed the man. And it was so bad that Trump let him go. I don't think Trump's going to let that happen this time. First of all, I don't think Trump's going to let them undermine his cabinet like they did in the first go-round. I think Trump has also realized that if you give them an inch, they will take 5 miles. There is no satisfying the liberal appetite for destroying lives if it means get Trump and stop warriors. So in my opinion, and I pray that I'm not wrong, but in my opinion, Donald Trump, because of what he has personally been through over the last few years, is not going to let other people get trashed like this because he knows that they will not stop. And so why give them something? Why throw them a bone? Because they don't want a bone, they want lives. And Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth is the life they want right now. You watch, we sit here in the studio, and it's right behind JP, so a lot of times his back's to it, but I'm looking above the screen. I can't tell you how many times I'm watching up there on the screen, and it's Pete Hegseth called into question. Pete Hegseth may be at risk of losing his job. Pete Hegseth, they can't stand it.
I think they're trying to make a mountain out of a molehill.
They absolutely are.
But like the caller yesterday who said they wouldn't be doing this if Hegseth wasn't being so successful. Look at recruiting numbers. Look at morale of the troops. It feels like the warrior ethos is coming back. So
yeah,
if he wasn't doing a good job, I don't think they would pay much attention to it. And Hegseth himself said that this story came out like a day or two after a bunch of leakers were fired from the Pentagon. So, put 2 and 2 together. It sounds like some angry staffer that got mad that they got fired is now trying to rub or smear Hegseth. So I just
and the latest story comes from NPR.
Shocker.
NPR, which is at risk of losing its funding overall, right? NPR cites a anonymous defense official who says that there's real trouble with Hegseth in the Pentagon. No, okay. I doubt that. There's zero credibility to that story. So yeah, I think Hegseth's going to survive this. I really do. And I also think this is about politics. It's pure and simple. This is about progressivism versus conservatism. It's also about politics because they hate Trump. This is about the idea of a U.S. military giving us the ability to project peace through strength, and they don't want that. And me personally, to me, this is about the military I grew up in. All right, I watched it growing up. I watched what it was like for my grandfather, my father, and then myself to serve, and now have a son on active duty. I've watched it for generations. We're a war serving family, and I'll just tell you that the idea of having a strong, and I keep calling it the warrior ethos, but that's what the Army calls it, a strong warrior ethos being restored right now to the U.S. military is exactly what we need, especially in this day and age, because this is not a calm and comfortable world. I got a call. Let me do that real quick before I go to the break. Steve from Tennessee. Hey, buddy, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. I just, I read today in an article all these things that Hegseth has accomplished, not to mention, blasting the Houthis, but there was a bunch of stuff on that list. And I thought to myself, I wish that bad boy would take on the Tom Homan attitude and just basically tell them to pound sand right to their face. Because Homan he's the best I've seen at just telling them, I really don't care what you think. And I fully believe that Trump has Hegseth's back, and for the same exact reasons you say. And I know for this, you've worked in the Pentagon too. That place is crawling with people that got stuck in there during Obama. And he's got a lot of people he could fire that would have a knife in his back in a heartbeat. So I'm with you totally. And like I said, Tom Homan II would do me real good. I'll hang up and listen. Have a good one.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate you, man, as always. And he's right. Yeah, working at the Pentagon, there's 25,000 people plus or minus under one roof. I mean, it's like a city in a building. It's got stores, it's got restaurants, it's got food courts, it's got massive amounts of people, and there's a bunch of embedded deep staters there, a bunch. And if you don't think the military industrial complex is not firmly ensconced in the Pentagon, you're in a dream world.
I would think that's more of the one that people like that can hide. The deep stater folks can hide in somewhere like the Pentagon because it's so big and entangled.
It absolutely is. But listen, I really believe that the left hates the idea of a strong military. I mean, think about what they did. They destroyed meritocracy for the last few years. They destroyed the idea of peace through strength. They apologized on the world stage for ever even having a U.S. spirit, an American spirit. The American dream is secondary to the idea of the DEI dream, the transgender dream, the social experimentation dream. And all of a sudden, the standards being watered down, recruiting went down, morale went down, Afghanistan was a debacle, and you look at the whole thing and you think, we got a lot of work to do to bring it back from that spot. But we can. We absolutely can. I'll tell you what, I'm going to take that call real quick before I go to the break. I don't want him to wait through the break. Let me just go ahead and do that real quick, and I've got about a minute and a half. Michael from Chattanooga. Hey, Michael, how you doing?
I'm fine. How are you doing?
I'm good, sir.
You were talking about the increase in the military. I just wanted to make you aware of something that Paula Knauf's self, she's one of the mothers of one of the 13 that was killed in the Afghanistan withdrawal debacle. She is going around the country raising money, and she has a foundation called Respect and Remember. R2factor.org is their website.
Okay.
And she raises money for junior ROTC students scholarships. And she's coming to Chattanooga next Monday to give away one of the first scholarships.
Well, Michael, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Did you want to comment on the topic at hand too with the military?
Well, see, one of the things is junior ROTC is advancing as far as the number of students who are joining it. So that proves right there that this warrior ethos is going all the way down to high school level.
Ah, outstanding. I just spoke at a JROTC military ball a couple weeks ago, and I would agree with that. Hey, Michael, we got to run to a break, man. Thanks so much for the call. Glad Chattanooga's calling in. Appreciate that.
Take care.
All right, take care. All right, listen, we are on a break. I ran long. Let's do that real quick. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Making common sense like a superpower. I just looked up on the screen. So what was it? What set was he on? Was that
It's TNT Inside NBA?
Yeah, Inside NBA
with Shaq, Chuck, and Ernie and all them. Yeah,
Shaquille O'Neal. Big Shaq just like in the middle of a live broadcast apparently had to hit the bathroom, and he just got up and literally like ran out of the room. And they said that's why he left. They didn't.
Yeah.
We're not guessing. That's what they said.
Yeah, and while he was in the bathroom, Kenny Smith said that Shaq's been trying these shots of olive oil to try to clean his gut, and he goes, "Oh, it cleaned his gut all right."
Well, it could happen to anybody, I suppose.
And
but
he came back and he said to Chuck, he was like, "Will you shut up and finish your point so we can go to break and I can use the bathroom? You're talking so long, I have to go."
Well, it's a good thing he got out when he did because he's wearing a light blue suit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
All right, jump back on the text real quick. We got a couple minutes. I ran long on that last segment, but I'm going to come back to this topic. So I'm in fake outrage on Hegseth. That's where we are. It's fake outrage on Hegseth. It's horrible. He has signal gates. Shut up. It's just stupid. Connor from Huntsville says, "Hey, Phil, Connor from Huntsville, the attack on Hegseth is really the Pelosi wrap-up smear just front and center. I just wish that the Republicans would call it out for what it is. Great show. Appreciate it." Thanks, Connor. You are so right, sir. You are so right. This is an absolute. It's a replay. This is like they're. But right now, at the very least, though, he's got the B team after him. It's not really sticking that hard. It's not one of those things where the whole world has to go, "Wait a minute, is something here?" Because there's just no there right now, and. Are people going to screw up? Of course they are. Do you fire them the first time they screw? No. And I'm going to go through some other stuff here about what's happening with Hegseth and accountability in the ranks and where we are on other issues. But this fake outrage is really just so overplayed. Marcus from Huntsville says, "Here's the biggest issue with the media storm as a whole right now. Their philosophy is that if it's good for Trump, it's bad for Democrats. It must come to an end." Yeah, exactly. The problem with this logic is the nation is never a factor in their decision process. Marcus, you nailed it, brother. It's not about what's good for us. It's not about statesmanship. It's about politics and about never Trump. That's where we are. I mean, he is literally he is so living rent-free inside their head right now that everything they do is geared towards how to dismantle his organization or his administration or his capabilities. And it's nauseating because the things he's doing are what the vast majority of Americans voted for. We wanted the deportations. We wanted the economic growth. We wanted the military to be strong. And by the way, have you ever seen a more dynamic type A bunch of personalities? Think about what we just had in Biden. Biden would stumble on the stage, say a few words. And they're having, go play Scrabble with that guy. You couldn't understand what the words were he's bringing out. And then you look at some of his cabinet members. You had Pete Buttigieg. Okay. You had Alejandro Mayorkas. Wow. You had Merrick Garland, who was like an undertaker, a mortician when he came out there and he'd speak very slowly and dry. Now you got a bunch of type A people that are out there running and gunning, a bunch of gunslingers going to the OK Corral every day, and they're getting the job done, and they're doing it with dynamic fashion. More on this when we get back. Fake outrage on Hegseth. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back.
You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama and Tennessee syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, covering down on all the issues. And oh yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to hour number 3 on a Taco Tuesday. Taco Tuesday. We got Dipper number 2 we're in right now, the fake outrage on Hegseth. Y'all, it's something else to watch. But you know what's happening though? Hegseth is restoring military culture. That's the truth. It is absolutely a different day. He is restoring military culture to what it should be. He's making people proud to be warfighters. He's making people feel like they've got a mission. He's reminding people that their goals in life are not to just, conform, but to excel. They are not to look around and find someone based upon an ideology or a skin color to be hired. They're looking at someone to being hired and or promoted based upon meritocracy. Like be the best, promote up. And then, oh, by the way, what that also means is accountability. You cannot have meritocracy without accountability. Keep that in mind. You cannot, this is Phil Williams here coining the phrase for you, but you cannot have meritocracy without also having accountability. Because meritocracy means the best move forward, the best rise to the top. But the best are only truly the best if they are people who along the way have been held accountable and other people were winnowed out who couldn't stand up to the accountability. So when something gets screwed up, someone has to say, my bad. I shouldn't have done that. That was my fault. I take full responsibility for it. And leaders, by the way, should be the first to say the buck stops here. You haven't seen that the last few years. Listen, you haven't seen that the last few years, but you're seeing it now. And you're seeing it all. I told you about a couple of them yesterday. The senior enlisted man for Air Force Special Operations is now out of a job. You've got generals who are now out of a job. We have a brand new chairman of the Joint Chiefs who's replaced the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs who was all in the DEI. And then you got stuff like this. The story that I was careful with about a week or so ago has finally played out a little more. Colonel Sheila Baez Ramirez. Sheila Baez Ramirez, she was a commander of Fort McCoy, which is if I'm not mistaken, is a National Guard training center in Wisconsin. But it's a pretty robust installation. It's not small. It's a fairly robust installation. Fort McCoy, Wisconsin. Colonel Sheila Baez Ramirez. My concern was the pictures just hadn't been put up yet, but there were empty frames on the wall where the Trump, Vance, and Hegseth images were supposed to be hanging along with the rest of the chain of command for Fort McCoy. And they weren't there. They were empty. What we have now learned is apparently they were taken out. In other words, they were put up and then someone removed them. And she has now been relieved of her duties. The story here on Fox News, Colonel Sheila Baez Ramirez has been suspended. Pete Hegseth himself actually announced it on social media that she has been placed in suspension. There has been no allegation of misconduct, but it certainly falls in the wake of this whole thing about the pictures not being put up. Why is that important? Some may look at it and go, it was just pictures. This is silly. She's losing her career. You know what it is? It's called undermining the chain of command. It's called making a statement about something that is not yours to make. Because when you're in the green suit, there's a time and a place for having your own opinion, and most of the time that's off duty, by the way. But when you are in uniform, the chain of command has to be because when you get ordered to take the hill, you do not want people who are raised up in a military where you're allowed to question everything and decide whether you should do it. You're not allowed to be in the military where if the leader says it, it's optional. Because when you're told to take the hill, you take the hill, and that's all there is to it. And right now, what we've had is several instances of leaders who have been raised up in the military where, orders were just like good ideas. We didn't have to follow through. The other one was Colonel Susanna Myers. Remember her? She was the commander of Patuxent Space Base in Greenland right after J.D. Vance, Vice President Vance, visited there. She sent out an email to her subordinates on the base personnel and told them, quote, "I do not presume to understand current politics, but what I do know is the concerns of the U.S. administration expressed by Vice President Vance on Friday are not reflective of Patuxent Space Base. I got news. Yes, they are, because he's your freaking vice president. That places him second in the chain of command for you. And that can't be allowed to happen." And so those folks fooled around and found out. There's also, by the way, I want to make sure I point out, Hegseth is cleaning his own house. So this accountability is not just on Biden appointees. It's not just on people who were hired or placed in their positions of leadership during a previous administration. Because we're watching right now as members of Hegseth's own staff are being relieved of their duties. Just in the last week or so, his deputy chief of staff, his deputy defense secretary, and the deputy defense secretary's chief of staff were both placed on administrative leave along with a senior advisor, all because of alleged leaks in the administration. What that tells me is we're watching a team that says it's not just about whether you were here before we got here and we don't want you anymore. It's about accountability, actual accountability. And that means whether we appointed you or somebody else did. That means whether you were here before we got here or whether we put you there. Accountability. If you're going to have meritocracy, you got to have accountability. I got a phone call. Is that Kareem? Kareem's on line one. Hey, brother, how you doing?
Hey, how you doing, Phil?
Good, man. What's up?
I'm sitting here fuming because at first it was just about Hegseth, but now that I realize that they fired this woman because she didn't put the pictures up, but somehow that's more important than him leaking state secrets.
What state secrets?
How is,
what state secrets?
You talk about lack of self-awareness.
What state secrets, Kareem? What state secrets?
This is him in his chat. And, it's okay for a Republican to say, maybe this guy's not up to the job. Maybe we could find somebody else to do it. Why is that so hard?
Let me ask you something. Did you care?
Hang
on a second. Did you care back when Eric Swalwell was on the National Intelligence Committee and he was sleeping with a Chinese spy, Fang Fang? Did you care about that?
Yes, I remember that. And they should have let him go. They should have disciplined him.
Okay, well, I'm glad to hear at least you're bipartisan on this one.
Man, a free pass.
Well, did you care when the 21 different members of the Intelligence Committee all said that it was Russian disinformation about the Hunter Biden laptop?
But you see, this is what I'm talking about. You keep talking about things. Hunter Biden laptop. Hunter Biden was not the president of the United States.
Okay.
So his laptop is not important.
It was.
Pete Hegseth is the head of the Department of Defense.
My point though is that you're expressing your deep concerns about whether or not he may or may not have violated some tenets of the National Security Act. But the reality is you didn't care about it as much when Democrats were doing it.
Listen, I just don't think he's up to the job.
Okay.
Now, you being a military guy, if anybody under you would have did that, would they still be in the military?
Had done what?
Would you still be in the military?
Thing? Yeah, as a matter of fact, yeah, I really. So here's the thing. I've carried a top secret clearance with an SCI status, and I've worked in SCIFs, and I've been read on to what they call SAP programs. I fully understand and engage the process of national security. That being said, what happened with that signal thing was a gaffe, but it was not what everybody's trying to make it out to be. It's really not. It's just not.
But he's still doing it.
He's still doing what?
Doing it. Isn't that?
You know what you got?
Talking to people that he shouldn't be talking to about our military secrets. He shouldn't be doing it.
Well, hang on a second. You're getting wired up, and what you're talking about? Are you talking about the second round of Signal Gate that they're trying to make out of the New York Times article?
The first and the second.
Okay.
And I'm talking about how you guys are twisting yourselves in the pretzels.
The first one has already blown by. Hang on a second. I'm going to go to word in edgewise with you here. The first one has already blown by and been proven to be a non-issue. The second one is
not a non-issue.
The second one is coming from a report from the New York Times, which is unsubstantiated and has no actual source attached to it. It's being reported that he talked to his wife. and his
Okay,
attorney.
so tomorrow when they come out with the actual text, because I can see it coming already, are you still going to justify for this man?
It depends on what he said.
Get rid of him and put somebody else in the position.
How about this? How about no? How about this? If they come out and they say something operational before the attacks occurred that are really truly violations of national security, I'll be concerned with you. But how about this? What if it turns out that he was texting his wife on Signal and his attorney was involved and it was after the fact and he said, "Man, we got the Houthis today." Why would that matter?
Listen, because I don't believe it played out like that. I believe this guy is a Fox News host or an opinion news host, and he just can't keep his mouth shut. He likes to brag about the things that he's doing, the stuff that he has access to. He's like a big child with a new toy. He doesn't belong there.
Have you looked back at some of the people that were in the positions they were in under the Biden administration? I mean, my gosh, Kareem, you had the absolute B team, maybe the C team, if that, playing some of the top roles in government under the Biden administration. You had that dude, Samuel, whatever his name was, who was a transgender fetish artist wearing dresses to work while he was working on nuclear security issues. I mean, and stealing people's luggage at the airport.
But did he spill any state secrets? I don't care what he was wearing. Did he spill any state secrets? Did he?
What you're looking at there is a dude who never should have gotten the job. All they had to do was look at his social media and go, "That one's a bad idea."
Because just on the strip that you do the transgender thing quite a few. Let me ask you something. If you really got to go to the bathroom, let's say you had a bunch of Taco Bell.
Oh, where are we now?
And you really got to go to the bathroom. If you go to the men's bathroom and it's a line around the corner and the women's bathroom is open, are you going to use the women's bathroom or are you just going to make it happen on yourself?
Well, hang on a second. Are you talking about like the one stall at the gas station where ain't nobody going to be in there, or are you talking about me walking in on a bunch of women saying, "Sorry, ladies, I got to use the facilities"?
I'm just talking about it doesn't matter. If you got to use the bathroom and you have all the stalls they're already locked up.
You know what this is telling me? What this is telling me is you so lost this argument right now that you don't know what to do. So now you're talking about bathrooms.
No, I'm just asking you, what would you do? What would you do? Would you just use the bathroom on yourself because you don't want to go in there and say, "Excuse me, ladies, I have to use the toilet"?
Kareem, you're hurting your credibility right now. Brother, come back.
I'm just asking you a question. You won't answer a simple question.
I cannot let you continue doing this to yourself. Please stop. Please,
okay,
please
I'm
stop.
just telling you. The man don't listen. The man don't belong in the position. He's like a big child who don't know how to handle the power that somebody has given him.
And see,
get him out of there. Put somebody else in there that can.
And see, here's the thing. I've talked to people in the ranks right now, and I'm a retired veteran myself, and I can tell you right now that the vet community, by and large, feels a whole lot different than you do. They're looking at a guy right now who has their back, who's raising morale. And recruiting is going through the roof. All the numbers don't lie, and we're back into a warfighter mode. And I think y'all can't stand it. That's what I think.
Yeah. Okay. It's all I'm saying is that it's just not about you and them. It's about the whole country.
Love you, man.
And I just don't think he's up to the job.
All right. See you. Love you. Bye. See you, Green. Take me to a break, man. I ran long on that one. I've run long on every segment lately. I get great callers, and they just want to keep me all the way past my break time.
It's just one of those shows.
It's just one of those shows. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. And what you just heard there is exactly what this dipper is called, fake outrage about Hegseth. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid conservative, just plain right. Dropping some truth bombs in here. That's what we're doing, dropping truth bombs. So, by the way, clear indication of where we are right now is I've got two screens up on the wall. On the right side is Fox, on the left side is CNN. The Fox side, President Trump is taking live questions right now in the White House Oval Office. The media is gathered. They're asking him anything they want to ask. He's answering questions off the cuff, no notes, no teleprompters, and just taking questions. And he's giving them all kinds of information on like the relationship with China, what's going on with everything else. On the left screen, it was what's going to happen with Pete Hegseth, because surely there's a scandal. They're not even doing the president's stuff right now.
Oh. We got to do our Hegseth narrative pre-written stuff, manufactured outrage first. That takes priority.
Manufactured outrage. Okay, so by the way, one of the things that Kareem was alluding to a moment ago was there is a second allegation now of a Signal chat. By the way, admittedly, CNN just showed it. The alleged Signal chat. If you're not familiar with Signal, it's an app you can use. It's pre-approved by the Department of Defense because it's supposed to be unhackable. It's also erasable. And there's a second Signal chat where allegedly Pete Hegseth shares information about military airstrikes in Yemen with who? His wife, his brother, and his lawyer. First of all, does that even make sense? But secondly, how does anybody know that? How does that even leak if it happened? I don't know. Did his lawyer break attorney-client privilege? Did his wife break spousal privilege? Did his brother turn on him? What is happening right now? How does anybody even know? Was somebody sitting at the coffee table and looked over there and saw what they were texting back and forth? It begs the question. But Hegseth has already said, too, this is a nothing burger. The reality is, he said, this is, by the way, somebody said earlier, they wish Hegseth would, was Steve from Tennessee, said, I wish he'd go Tom Homan. It's amazing what he is saying. Hegseth lashed out at criticism during the White House's annual Easter egg roll on Monday, saying this is what the media does. They take anonymous sources from disgruntled former employees, they try to slash and burn people and ruin their reputations, and it's not going to work with me. He said, we're changing the Defense Department. We're putting the Pentagon back in the hands of warfighters, and anonymous smears from disgruntled former employees on old news does not matter. Well,
and so after the first Signal Gate incident, you know, he almost got a bit too defensive, in my opinion. But I think this time around, it was better on his end.
Yeah, that was his first. That was his first scandal in the public eye, and it's not going to be his last because he was a Republican. So there, you do have one Republican calling for his ouster, though.
Who's that?
Some guy I never heard of before, Representative Don Bacon. He's a Republican from Nebraska. And Don Bacon is himself a former Air Force general, apparently, who now chairs the subcommittee on cyber. He said, I like him on Fox, but does he have experience to lead one of the biggest organizations in the world? And then he said, I'm not in the White House. I'm not going to tell the White House how to manage this, but I find it unacceptable, and I wouldn't tolerate it if I was in charge. Okay.
Well, you're not in charge,
Don,
so.
but you're not in charge. I suspect he won't get the Trump endorsement on the next go-around for his re-election.
Probably not.
And then a couple of other things on this, and then we'll wind it down. Hegseth has not taken things lying down. The Democrats sent out a tweet saying, Pete Hegseth needs to go. Very compelling. That's all they had. His reply was, your agenda is illegals, trans, and DEI, all of which are no longer allowed. They came back and said something like nanny nanny boo boo or something. I don't know. It was kind of ridiculous. But the reality is he's a high-value target because basically if they can get him, they get Trump, but they also get rid of warriors. And that's what matters to them. They can't stand warriors. They can't stand Trump. Manufactured outrage. That's where we are. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. Hey, all you Rightside ruffians out there, you are listening to Rightside Radio, solid conservative, just plain right. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Covering down on some major ground across the southeast U.S. of A. Y'all, I'm talking about this show. Whew. It goes like from Huntsville back over to Chattanooga. I'm talking about from Tuscaloosa back over to Gadsden. All the way down to that loveliest little village on the plains called Auburn, straight across the border to what we now call, once again, Fort Benning. And then, oh, by the way, big old patches of North Georgia and Mississippi all thrown in just for good measure. Ed P. from Huntsville checking in. Ed P. says on a text line, he says, a West Point classmate of mine recently posted on Facebook lamenting the firing of Vice Admiral Shoshana Chatfield. Yeah, I think she was the Pacific commander. Anyway, he asserted that he knew her to be an excellent officer with impeccable integrity who was fired because she was a woman. I argued that he should reread the portion of his commission that says this commission shall remain in effect during the pleasure of the President of the United States, and that the President can fire any commissioned officer for any reason or for no reason at all. And when that didn't sway him, he says, I posted credible news reports that she refused to post chain-of-command photos of President Trump, VP Vance, and SecDef Hegseth, and reportedly told her staff they would just, quote, wait him out for the next 4 years. Said I was met with silence from him, but agreement from everybody else in the discussion that if an officer cannot sport their chain of command, the only honorable choice is to resign or retire. Any other course of action is unprofessional and prejudicial to the good order and discipline of the military. Ed P., you need to run this show, brother. You nailed it. Good job. On the opposite end of the spectrum is Shag Nasty checking in, saying Hegseth is the triple sec of defense. What does that even mean?
I was hoping you knew.
Okay, I don't know, but okay. And then Merle from Hartselle just said, I just pulled off the highway in a parking lot. How do you stay so calm with Kareem? I hope they keep up the outstanding job getting our military back into a lean, mean fighting machine. Merle from Hartselle. Merle, stay safe on the road, brother. All right, let me go to the phone. Speaking of being on the road, Jeff Rowe from Indiana checking in. Hey, man, how are you doing?
I'm at that good place again.
Well, is ye northbound in that said place, or is ye southbound?
I'm northbound, and I can see the Batman building, and that's about it.
Okay. All right, good deal. Well, at least there's that. What do you think, man? What do you think about all this stuff we're talking about? Is Pete Hegseth, is he on the outs? Are we about to lose our Secretary of Defense?
Oh, better not be, because he's doing a fine job. But, I think we need to look back in the background of all these reporters asking me all these questions and all these people that's down him for what's going on here. I want to know what their opinion was on the Hillary server.
Yeah.
And, see how they commented on that, if they said it wasn't no big deal, or if they tried to protect her, or all this stuff and everything. And then if it's the ones that tried to shuffle Hillary's, that it wasn't no big deal and everything, I think you just need to look at them and say, hey, I'll take the Hillary treatment, please, thank you.
The Hillary treatment, which is otherwise known as a free pass.
Exactly. It's not a big deal anyway. I mean. But if we're going to go and knock everything on the I guess it was for the Records Act and everything, you're supposed to have everything as everything government does as far as the records. So we either enforce that to everyone, or we don't enforce it at all.
That's exactly right.
So you can't just pick and choose. Well, we're going to get the Republicans, but the Democrats can do all this other stuff. I think. And wasn't it even Anthony Weiner and some of them had some special stuff, I guess, that was off all this stuff, and it went to all these different people that shouldn't have known these things.
Yeah, what was Anthony Weiner's pseudonym on his? He used a different name, something Danger.
Danger. Yeah.
Look that up real quick.
Oh my God.
Anthony Weiner's pseudonym, and see what that was. It was like something Danger. It was ridiculous, but he was saying all kinds of stuff that he shouldn't be saying. Would you find it?
Carlos Danger.
Carlos Danger. That's him. Holy
Danger,
cow!
All right.
Yeah, he's dangerous to be around your kids. I know that.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right, listen. I gotta say too. One of the things you brought up, Hillary, and it really reminds me. The left will scream about what's going on with Hegseth and pretend they've got something that they don't. But you're right. They didn't say boo about what happened with Hillary's server. By the way, at the exact same time that Hillary was not being prosecuted, there was a young Navy man who worked in a nuclear submarine who made a stupid mistake. He took pictures of his workstations in the sub because he thought it was cool, and he got prosecuted because that was a violation of the security clearance requirements to work in the sub. So he's working on a nuclear sub, takes pictures, he gets prosecuted, loses his career. Hillary Clinton takes bleach bit and a hammer to her server and takes a free pass and runs for president. It was ridiculous.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and like I say, they ruined his life, but she gets a pass.
Yep.
And then we can't forget that Obama knew about the secret server too, because he was contacting her on it.
Yep.
So I mean, how much information was passed there that was lost on that server that they didn't want nobody to know.
Yep, absolutely.
Obama.
Well, it's fake outrage. This is not about security clearances. This is not about anything except A, get Trump, and B, stop warriors. They don't want either one. They don't want Trump and they don't want warriors.
Yeah, I wonder what would happen if Trump would change his registration to becoming a Democrat. Wouldn't that be wild? What would they do? It's like, oh my gosh, we hate ourselves now.
Well, maybe we'll get Elon Musk to just buy the Democrat Party, flip it, and we'll have a whole new day. Be awesome.
Well, that's all I ever hear is that he owns everything. He's this, that, and everything else, and he's the biggest patriot immigrant that we've had, as far as I'm concerned. He's putting his own neck out there and sacrificing his own money and everything else to do what's right for this country. So
I agree.
I'll take a lot of him. I'll take all the immigrants we can like him.
All right, man. Listen, be safe on the road, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. All right.
Have a good one, Phil.
You too, buddy. See ya. Jeff Rowe from Indiana. I got this whole section here. I'm not sure what I can get done, but I've got this last dipper that's actually, I actually called it Panikins. Oh my gosh, you're quick on that button.
I knew it was coming.
So that's our actual sound effect for Panikins. Those are Panikins, by the way, are people who live to spread fear. You either live in fear or they live to spread fear, or both. And they just kind of gush fear every time they get into a topic. And they talk about all the worst case scenarios, and they're doomsayers, and there's nothing good in the world. And I look at it like, I had a piece here. I guess I'll go ahead and I guess I'm in the dipper now.
We played the sound effect. We're in the dipper.
Here's a name you haven't heard in a while. Dylan Mulvaney. Where's he been? We don't care.
No, I don't really care.
Breitbart's got an article came out yesterday, says that controversial transgender influencer Dylan Mulvaney, I like the fact that they still call him Dylan. Dylan Mulvaney appears to be seeking to permanently relocate his residence outside the U.S. In an interview with a UK-based gay website called Pink News, Mulvaney insisted he's looking to permanently relocate to England. And I look at this and think, okay, why? And then again, I got to thinking, I don't care. And it's because Britain is very welcoming, and he doesn't feel welcome back here. And I'm thinking, can we start a GoFundMe account to help him buy the plane ticket and get him out of here?
Yep.
And can they put him on, I don't know, let's find a liberal beer over there and put him on the can and see how it goes. But these are folks who live to spread the worst case scenario as being the only way forward. Everything's bad. I mentioned one in my monologue earlier in the show, and I'm going to have to come back and get some of these text messages because y'all are awesome. So I'm going to just do a little bit of this dipper. But MSNBC, the talking heads on MSNBC, which includes one named Simone Sanders, I believe it is, and she's the bald one. But Simone Sanders is of the mind that the deportations that Trump is engaging in are going to bring down democracy as we know it. And that next in line is People of color, she says, are going to be next in line for deportation. Okay, let's just play it. Go ahead and play it.
I've been talking about this all week, but Janae Nelson of the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, she penned an op-ed in The Nation this week.
Okay, stop.
And her op-ed
First of all, she's relying upon something written by a person who works for the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. Keep going.
Talked about that we think that democracies are... The way they die is dramatically through these wars and blood is shed, and it's cinematic in a sense. But really, the realistic way in which democracies die is that it's dismantled brick by brick, piece by piece. And she says that what we are seeing now with the lawlessness from this administration,
okay, lawlessness. It's
are
lawlessness.
really the canaries in the coal mine gasping for air. I'm paraphrasing here, but to me, that is why Kilmar Abrego Garcia's specific case, the case of the gentleman who's a makeup artist out of California who was also sent to that prison. That is why the 75% of the folks who have been sent, the men who have been sent there that don't have criminal records, that is why this is so important. Because if they could do it to them, if they could snatch students off the street without any pushback or recourse, they will do it to any of us. And to be very clear, it's going to be the people of color and vulnerable communities that are next in line.
Stop. All right. The lawlessness, she says, doom, gloom, fear. Snatching people off the street, doom, gloom, fear. The idea that these people have never committed a crime. They're here illegally. Oh, by the way, they're all MS-13 gang members, and quite a few of them have committed crimes in the United States, aside from coming here illegally. And that, oh, by the way, she's really scared. She's fearful. She's gloom, doom, fear on the idea that somehow or another this will not only bring down democracy as we know it, one brick at a time. By the way, how's it going to bring down democracy? Because illegals don't vote anyway. At least they're not supposed to.
I don't even think she knows what she means with that statement.
I don't either. And then she winds up intoning that what's going to happen next is after they finish snatching up all these innocent people off the streets, then they're coming for the people of color. That's what's going to happen. Sure, that makes good sense. Here's the problem. Okay, here's a problem. Here's one of many problems. Sitting across from her when she said that was a U.S. congressman, a Democrat from Maryland, whose name escapes me at the moment. Have you got it on the screen? Do you see what it is?
It's not on here.
I can look it up. I had it in my monologue
I'll
earlier.
do some research.
It's in my monologue from earlier. But the reality is, sitting across from her, not disputing a single thing she just said in her gloom, doom, and fear, is a U.S. congressman who actually nodded his head in agreement and then said, this is why black people don't trust Trump's deportation. Who is it? You got his name? No? It blows your mind that this is these are panicans. These are absolute panicans. You're slower on the button that time.
I'm trying to do some.
I had to say the word twice before you push the button.
I'm trying to figure out who this guy is. I can't see it anywhere.
Just look at my text from my monologue
it is
earlier.
Glenn Ivey.
That's right, Democrat Glenn Ivey, congressman from Maryland. Yeah. Can you imagine if a Republican said, you know what's going to happen is Joe Biden's going to deport all the white people.
The whole narrative,
or if we said all the black people. Yeah,
the whole narrative of if they can do it to them, they'll do it to you is so stupid, and it's fear mongering.
It's absolute. This is why the Democrats prove time and again they don't understand leadership, because leadership is meant to engage people in the process of doing things they might not otherwise do on their own, and you don't just do that through fear. Healthy fear is okay. Healthy fear is like teaching a soldier combat skills so that when they take the hill, they are better able to, live through the fight. Healthy fear is like little stuff like, I said earlier in my monologue, is like, you don't want to miss your flight. You're scared of missing your flight, so you get to the airport early. Healthy fear usually involves self-discipline and a higher cause. Unhealthy fear is what you heard there. People cowering because Trump's going to try and deport all the people of color because that's what he does. He's lawless, tearing down democracy. It's absolutely, completely asinine. and it's pannikins. That screaming goat thing, I think, is my favorite sound effect like ever.
It's a great one.
It actually is. I got more on this. I'm not sure we're going to get there, but here's the thing. Liberals don't know what to do because they're not in charge and they don't know how to get back. They don't have any message. Let's take a break. Fear is all they got? That's crazy. Fear. Can you imagine if fear is all you got? Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. How about a little hope, y'all? We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Making common sense like a superpower. Just a couple of minutes left of the show, getting you into go-home mode. I know some of y'all are already out there. In fact, several of the text messages I got, tell me you are. Who was it that texted in and said, Bobby from Huntsville said, the screaming goat is terrific, but I was sitting at a red light when you made it sound, and I thought it was screeching tires. I was looking for the hit. Sorry, man. That's rough. I apologize. John from Huntsville has the grades in. He says, Jeff from Indiana gets a solid A for his solid performance. Phil and Malia Stevens both get an A double plus for their equally amazing performances, which means for the second day in a row, the winner with a perfect A triple plus is the Magnificent JP. The Magnificent JP. How about that? Congratulations. I see many radio awards in your near future. That's your near future.
In my near future, yes.
That's right. Was that participatory?
No, because it came from John. John is the authority with the grades.
That's true. Lee from Decatur says, the irony of the conversation from the Dems is they don't care or want democracy anyway, but President Trump's a threat to it. There you go. John from Minor says, it's funny how she's afraid of something that will never happen, people of color being deported, but she isn't afraid of actual citizens being raped and or killed by these people with a reputation for doing awful acts such as those. You nailed it. Thank you, John. Steve from Huntsville says, let's see if I can answer it. It says, Phil, because Colonel, I have a legal question. Why do they say illegals have constitutional rights? Wouldn't you need to be here legally to have those protections? Yes and no. There are some due process rights afforded to some of these citizens, and when they're here in parole status, sometimes they've gained some statuses that they might not normally have had. But then those who are falling under the Alien Enemies Act of 1798 are in a different position. They're not treated as if they are here in any capacity except as an enemy combatant, and that's why they're being deported so fast. And the courts have now put a kibosh on that for the moment. What else we got? Paul from Decatur says, hey, Colonel, this is Paul in Decatur. About yesterday's fourth point of contact comments, I was in 20th group for 10 to 12 years, so yes, I am a paratrooper. Paul, I knew it, and I was in group 2, so appreciate you. Thank you very much. JT Lacey Springs says, Kareem, good to hear from you. Gary from Decatur says, Kareem thinks that Pete Hegseth should keep his mouth shut, just like General Austin does when he's not in contact with the Pentagon about any kind of security, national, or personnel while under anesthesia. Yeah, that's a great point. Nobody said boo about the SecDef missing in action AWOL for 5 days in a row.
Yeah, literally going MIA.
Yeah, and then going under general anesthesia and not telling anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's bring that up again sometime soon. Michael from Taft, Tennessee says, after that session with the Kareem, you need a break so you can get a drink. No, it's all good. Adam from Athens says, Kareem has no credibility. By the way, how was that steak? Yep, never had it. Bob from Decatur says, I think somebody, okay, I'm not going to say that. Never mind. He's not a fan of Kareem's commentary. Graham from Meridianville says, Kareem, there was no classified info released, none, zero, nada. All right, listen. I will tell you every single day, you guys, there's more of us than there are of them, and God is still very much on his throne. Y'all stay on the fight. We'll see you tomorrow.